Please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. Humans, it seems to me, are hardwired to look outside themselves for sources of truth, to, in fact, give authority to a few people to lead, direct, and guide. I wonder why we have such a strong need to look outward rather than inward for truth. Jesus, the human one, didn't look outward, even though he was taught inside a system where authority was given to a few men and contained within a very few books. Rather, it seems Jesus knew instinctively and intuitively that he held life's deep truths, love, compassion, and hope, held them within him. For Jesus, there was no notion of separation, even from God. Alan Watts, an early 20th century British philosopher, said, "The truth that religion, to be of any use, must be mystical, has always been denied by the seemingly large number of people, including theologians, who do not know what mysticism is." He goes on, "Its essence is the consciousness of union with God. Basically, to experience non-separation or non-duality from anything, particularly God, one must move to the mystical mind. Any other mind or heart is utterly inadequate to the task." I would say that the consciousness of Jesus is the consciousness available to every Christian and every person on a spiritual quest. The whole point of the gospel is that everyone can experience union with God in the same way as Jesus himself. Jesus knew intuitively, because of his own deep connection to his inner God-centered, love-centered wisdom, that every human has the same potential and the same capacity to know. The prophet Jeremiah, who lived hundreds of years before Jesus, knew this too. He became both famous and infamous for his words in chapter 31, where he said, and he used it as the voice of God, saying, "I will put the law within them. I will write it on their hearts. No longer will they teach one another, or say to each other, 'Know God,' for they shall all know me." There's no point in any of us waiting for an epiphany to happen. The mystic experience of God, of the mystic experience of great love, is born in you and lives in you and is there waiting, just waiting for your attention. There's no magic. There's no doctrine that can reveal this inner connection to great love, to the God presence. We need to open to it. We need to open to it through the practice of silence and stillness, to know what is already there, written on our hearts. And this is a reconnection, really. It's not a new connection, for I believe we are each born with this great love within us. We experience a falling away or a separation from our own true nature as we are socialized and educated. But as Jeremiah said, and as Jesus demonstrated, Each of us knows how to embrace and live deep love. And when this happens, we are in full union with God. This video clip, for me, expresses the innate nature of great love in a very touching way.
Piece of tape.
The reality is, we could be very, very cynical about this little clip. We could assume that the teacher has asked the other children to put something in that box while he was out of the room. Or we could assume that they responded out of guilt. Or we could assume that some of the children had more than they needed and so gave from their excess. But I choose to see this as a demonstration and a practice of great love, where the motivation comes from an intuitive sense of knowing deep inside what is right. It is an inner knowing in each of the children that responded to an empty lunchbox. Like Jesus, when we make choices from our love center, we become one with God. I witnessed this in the lives of children when I was in ministry in Salmon Arm. A young woman named Vida from northern Ghana was studying nursing at UBCO. And she came and spoke to the children and youth at the church back in 2007 about her village back in Ghana. For many, many years, the children there walked 15 kilometers return to school each day. And so they weren't allowed to start school until they were 9 or 10. And I'm saying, can you imagine any of our 9 or 10-year-olds walking 7.5 kilometers each way to school? But that's what happened. Eventually, the village raised enough money to build a small hut and hire a single teacher for about 300 children. And unfortunately, after about a year, the teacher died. And the village was uncertain what they were going to do. But the government of Ghana had noticed this little village, and they committed to building a 3-room school with washing facilities and hiring 3 teachers. They committed funds for that, but it would only put up the walls, the roof, doors, and the windows. All the finishing, the plastering, the painting, the furniture, all of that had to be provided by the village, and it was going to cost about $4,000. $4,000 they didn't have. So she tells the story, and the children and youth, in one voice, said, "We need to do something." There was no hesitation. And they championed raising those funds. They did fundraisers, they launched appeals, and in that first year, they raised $7,600. More than covering the cost of supplies. And so then the question was, so what do we do with the rest? And the children in that village, families were very, very poor, and they tended, because of the nature of their culture, to send the boys to school. And if there was anything left over, the girls might get to go. So a trust fund was established. And it wasn't just for girls, it was for any child that needed financial support in order to attend the school. Since 2007, $50,000 has been raised, and over 1,000 girls have been educated. Their response came from their hearts, from their love center, and they responded out of one single truth. They said yes to the question, do we believe every human life is of equal value? Great love filled many, many lunch boxes. This way of knowing truth, opening to what is right, is for me the central message of the passage from Matthew. The chief priests and the elders of the community don't understand. They just simply don't understand that Jesus is operating from an internal source for authority. That a great love for all determines his way of living in the world and the day-to-day and moment-to-moment decisions that he makes. He chooses this over external sources, written laws, people in positions of power, and tradition. It's not that laws and authority figures and tradition aren't important, but what he was saying is that all those external sources of authority must first pass the internal test of great love. Is every life of equal value? Is anyone excluded? And Jesus recognized that John the Baptist was another who drew his authority from his own inner wisdom, rooted in love. The other thing is Jesus is also saying that he personally is not the authority either, but that each of us, the challenge is to each of us, like him, like John, like Jeremiah, like so many others through history, we must open to the wisdom of great love within us too. So I want to end today with another poem by Jan Phillips, who I believe is saying a similar thing about the nature of authority and our own inner wisdom. From burning bushes are everywhere, this is we who are alive today. We who are alive today are the eyes and ears, the hands and feet of the invisible source. We are thought incarnate, word made flesh, spirit embodied, love materialized. We who are alive today are agents of ongoing creation. We are the consciousness of the earth, the universe knowing itself, seeing itself, singing to itself. We are creation loving itself, hearing itself, healing itself through our actions and compassion. As the cosmos multiplies and expands forever outward, so does it expand forever inward, evolving us into beings of higher consciousness. We are made of heaven and earth, starlight and clay, minerals and meteor dust. We are the infinite wave, concentrated into finite particles, space-time compressed into the speck of a lifetime. We are creating tomorrow with our thoughts and words. We are shaping ourselves and families, our communities and cities, our cultures and civilization by what we do and fail to do. We are ascending into our potential, evolving into our Godness, co-creating the whole that is the sum of our parts. They never told us it would be like this, that we ourselves are the shapers of our world, called to be light and holiness that we seek. We who are alive today Let us sing for joy that the heaven we sought is within and around us, that wherever we look, there is holiness looking back. Let us not lose heart. No matter what storms batter and buffet us, life holds us firmly in the palm of its hand. We are being called into the mystery, to open to our own inner light and see that the presence of great love within us is our sacred union with God, and the only source of real authority. Amen.